In the biting cold of a New York winter night, when white snow blanketed every corner, and the piercing wind cut through skin and flesh, it seemed nothing could withstand nature's harshness. Yet, amid that frigid darkness, there were hearts that still beat quietly, refusing to surrender. The loyal heart of a dog named Rex, lost but relentless in its search for home. The tiny heart of a little girl named Emma, lonely and trembling, yet willing to sacrifice to warm another life. And the fragile heart of a newborn baby, Liam, faintly pulsing on the brink of life and death. This is the story of courageous hearts that found each other in a raging blizzard, weaving together a miracle of love, loyalty, and hope. Let us listen closely, to feel the warmth from those hearts that never cease to beat, no matter how icy the winter night becomes. The winter night in New York was cold enough to pierce the heart, with snow falling ceaselessly like an endless white curtain, covering the streets, piling high against the stained walls of alleys, and shimmering faintly under the dim orange glow of old street lamps. The wind howled fiercely, carrying a chill as sharp as a blade, slicing through every layer of cloth and making even hurried passers-by shudder. Most of the city's residents had retreated to warm homes, beside crackling fireplaces, escaping the relentless cold that enveloped everything. But deep within a dark alley, where light could not reach and warmth was a distant luxury, something fragile enough to tear at the heart struggled silently to exist, a forsaken newborn child. The infant lay there, so small it nearly blended into the shadows, wrapped only in a thin, tattered rag, its frayed threads unraveling like a tale of despair. Its tiny chest rose and fell weakly in the icy air, each breath a faint whisper battling the merciless cold. Its minuscule lips were tinged purple, its skin pale as wax, its eyes tightly shut as if it had never glimpsed the light. Beside the baby, a torn trash bag lay scattered, perhaps the last trace of whoever had left it there, offering no explanation, no shred of pity. In another corner of the vast city, on deserted streets now filled only with the whistling wind, a German shepherd named Rex trudged forward. His once glossy thick fur was now dull and matted from snow and hunger. Rex had once been the pride of the New York police force, a proud warrior with sharp eyes and a loyal heart, always standing side by side with his partner, James Miller, during dangerous shifts. But after years of service, old age and a lingering injury in his leg had led to Rex's retirement, allowing him to spend peaceful days with James's family. Yet, just a few days ago, during an unexpected blizzard, as James took Rex out for a routine patrol out of old habit, a loud explosion in the distance startled Rex, sending him bolting into the night. James had searched everywhere, calling Rex's name until his voice grew hoarse, but there was no trace to be found. Tonight, Rex was gaunt and famished, his legs trembling after days of wandering without food. Yet, within his deep brown eyes burned an unquenchable flame, the longing to return home, to James and Sophia, the people he considered his entire world. The blizzard roared, snow burying his paws, but Rex pressed on, guided by instinct and a wordless yearning in his heart. The infant and Rex, two lost souls adrift in the winter night, had no inkling that fate was about to intertwine their paths in a way no one could foresee. Rex's paws pressed into the thick snow, each step laborious, emitting faint sounds like sighs. His once robust frame was now thin, ribs faintly visible beneath his fur, his legs shaking from exhaustion. The cold gnawed at his flesh, but Rex did not stop. In his mind, images of James's warm, steady voice, his hand stroking Rex's head, and Sophia's gentle smile over warm meals flickered like a lighthouse guiding him home. An invisible strength, greater than hunger or frost, propelled Rex forward, as if his loyal heart refused to yield before he could once more embrace his family. As he crossed a narrow alley, amid the howling wind, a faint sound reached Rex's keen ears, not the hum of engines, nor the shuffle of footsteps, but a tiny whimper, nearly swallowed by the storm. Rex halted, ears pricked, nose sniffing the frigid air. His eyes scanned the darkness, and the instincts honed over years of police work surged to life. He stepped slowly into the alley, each movement cautious, reminiscent of tracking clues in past cases. The feeble scent of life drew him onward, and then, amidst the debris and thin layer of snow, Rex saw it, a newborn baby lying motionless on the frozen ground. The child was so small it seemed like a melting snowflake, the tattered cloth around it barely revealing a minuscule face, trembling lips tinged blue. Rex stood frozen, eyes wide, as if time itself had paused. Though his training days were long behind him, the protective heart within him had never faded. Without a moment's hesitation, Rex lay down beside the infant, curling his large body around the tiny form like a warm nest. His thick fur, though damp and chilled, offered a fragile shield against the biting cold. Rex lowered his head, his warm breath brushing the baby's face like a silent comfort. But as his nose touched the icy skin, Rex sensed life slipping away. The infant's breaths were so faint they were nearly imperceptible. Rex's heart raced, not from fear, but from a profound understanding known only to the truest of companions. He knew the child wouldn't survive long in this cold, and he, no matter how strong, couldn't save it alone. Raising his head, Rex let out a series of loud, urgent barks, sharp and piercing, cutting through the wind like a desperate alarm bell. He stood, pacing near the alley's entrance, barking louder, more insistently, his voice echoing through the empty expanse. Snow clung to his fur, the wind lashed his face, but Rex didn't relent. His resolute brown eyes fixed on the dark street, pleading for a glimmer of hope, for someone to appear. A few blocks away, beneath a makeshift shelter of tattered cardboard and an old, threadbare blanket, a little girl stirred awake. Emma, just 5 years old, had grown accustomed to the skin-cutting chill of New York winters. She had no home, no parents, only the street corners and long, lonely nights. The harsh life of the streets had taught Emma to huddle in the shadows, to stay silent to avoid notice, and to trust no one. Her small hands clutched a worn cloth doll, the sole remnant of a distant memory she couldn't fully recall, perhaps a trace of a mother she'd never known. But tonight, amid fitful sleep, a strange sound roused Emma. Sharp, persistent barks echoed through the frigid air, piercing the thin cardboard barrier. It wasn't an ordinary dog's bark, it was urgent, laced with distress, like a cry for help from the depths of a heart. Emma sat up, her large, round eyes glinting in the dark, her fingers tightening around the doll as if seeking comfort. In her mind, the rules she'd set for herself rang out. Don't go out, don't be curious, danger is waiting. Yet the barking didn't stop. It tugged at Emma's tiny heart, stirring a strange feeling she'd never known, as if someone out there needed her, truly needed her. Trembling, Emma pushed aside the old blanket, her bare little feet touching the icy snow. She pulled her thin, frayed coat around her, her breath forming faint wisps of white vapor. Just a little, she whispered to herself, as if to muster courage. Stepping onto the snow-covered street, she followed the sound, each step a battle against the cold and her fear. The wind whipped at her small face, but Emma pressed on, hugging herself to preserve the last traces of warmth. Before long, she reached the entrance to an alley. Under the dim glow of a street lamp, Emma saw a large dog, Rex, standing there, his breath steaming in the cold air, his eyes blazing with an almost human urgency. Emma froze, her heart pounding, unsure whether to advance or retreat. Then her gaze fell upon a small bundle Rex was guarding. A powerful instinct surged within her, and without another thought she rushed forward, her bare feet skimming the snow. Kneeling beside the bundle, she tremblingly peeled back the tattered cloth, and her heart shattered as she saw a newborn baby, its face pale, lips blue, its breaths as faint as a candle on the verge of flickering out. Emma looked up at Rex, his eyes locked onto hers, pleading yet trusting. Don't be afraid, I'll help, she whispered, her voice quivering but filled with a resolve far beyond her 5 years. Without hesitation, she shed her only coat, the thin shield that had protected her through countless freezing nights, and wrapped it tightly around the baby. The cold bit into her bare skin instantly, but Emma didn't care. Her small, shaking hands cradled the infant, pressing it to her chest as if to share her last bit of warmth. You have to live, she murmured, tears streaming down her cheeks, melting into the snow beneath her. Rex stood by, his gaze never leaving Emma, a silent partner in her mission. She looked up, took a deep breath, and stood, lifting the baby. Come on, she said to Rex, turning toward the faint glow in the distance. The police station, the only place she knew might offer hope. Rex stayed close, never straying, his large frame pressing against her as if to shield them both from the biting wind. The snow fell thicker, the wind lashed harder, but Emma trudged on, clutching the baby tightly, her small body a fragile barrier against the cold. Her bare feet turned red and numb, each slip on the ice met with gritted teeth and determination. The journey felt endless. Emma's breaths came in short, ragged gasps, her hands trembled, but the station's light gradually sharpened through the snowy haze. Almost there, she told herself, her voice breaking from exhaustion. With her final ounce of strength, she stumbled to the heavy glass door, her numb little hands pushing with all her might. It swung open, and warmth and light flooded over her, enveloping her in a gentle embrace she'd never known. Inside, the officers at the front desk froze in shock. Before them stood a tiny girl, barefoot and shivering, her arms wrapped tightly around a motionless infant. Behind her, Rex stood tall, his deep brown eyes fixed on them as if commanding. "Save it!" One officer rushed forward, gently taking the baby from Emma's arms. "My God!" he gasped, his face paling as he felt the chill of the small body. "What happened, little one? Where did you come from?" another officer asked, kneeling to her level, his voice trembling. Emma looked up, her wide eyes brimming with tears, her lips quivering. I found it in the alley. The dog led me there. It's so cold. I was afraid it wouldn't make it." Without a second's hesitation, the officers sprang into action. One grabbed the radio, his voice urgent as he called for an ambulance. "We've got a newborn, critical condition." Another dashed off to fetch warm blankets, wrapping them around Emma and Rex. The little girl sank to the floor, her bare feet tucked beneath her, arms hugging herself, but her eyes never left the baby. Rex lay close beside her, resting his head on her legs as if to say, "We've done all we could." Soon, the wail of an ambulance siren pierced the air, and medics burst in, swiftly placing the infant on a stretcher. "We need to get it to the hospital now," one said, voice taut with tension. "There's almost no time left." The ambulance sped through snow-covered streets, its sirens slicing through the quiet night. Inside, the medics worked frantically, their hands trembling as they inserted and tore into the baby's tiny arm, bundled it in more warm blankets, and fitted an oxygen tube. "Hang on, little one," one whispered, his voice catching as he gazed at the infant's bluish skin. Emma huddled in a corner, wrapped in the thick blanket an officer had given her, her wide, round eyes locked on the child, as if afraid it might vanish if she blinked. In the police cruiser trailing behind, Rex pressed his head against the window, his breath fogging the glass in faint streaks, his steadfast gaze seeming to count each fragile heartbeat of the baby. At the hospital, everything became a whirlwind. The medical team rushed into the emergency room, their footsteps rapid, their voices clipped yet heavy with urgency. "Body temperature's too low, get the heater ready." 4 lines were inserted, warm blankets wrapped tightly, and an oxygen tube placed in the tiny nose. A young nurse, her eyes red and teary, whispered to a colleague, "It's so small, how could it survive that cold?" The team worked tirelessly, each second passing like a weighty verdict. In the waiting room, Emma sat quietly on a chair, clutching a cup of hot cocoa offered by a kind nurse. The warmth seeped into her numb fingers, but she didn't drink, her gaze fixed on the emergency room doors. Rex lay at her feet, his head resting against her, his steady breathing a quiet comfort. Hours dragged on, each minute a test of fragile hope. Emma said nothing, but within her was an unspoken prayer. "Please live." Rex occasionally lifted his head, gently licking her hand, as if sensing her worry. As the first light of dawn broke through the hospital windows, a doctor emerged, his face weary but his eyes alight with a spark of hope. He knelt before Emma, his voice soft. "It's stable now, little one. It was touch and go, but it's stronger than we thought. You saved its life." Emma looked up, her eyes welling with tears, her lips trembling in disbelief. A single tear rolled down her cheek, landing on Rex's fur. She gave a faint nod, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in that long night. News of the rescue spread like wildfire. By midday, reporters gathered outside the hospital, cameras capturing the image of tiny Emma and proud Rex. Headlines flooded the papers. 5-year-old girl and loyal dog save baby in blizzard. Social media erupted with praise. People from far and wide sent well wishes, donations of clothes and food, and heartfelt messages. One person wrote, "I cried reading this. A homeless girl, a lost dog, and they pulled off a miracle." Yet amid all the attention, Emma remained silent, her small hand resting on Rex's head, her eyes distant as if she couldn't yet grasp what had happened. Far from the hospital, in a cozy little apartment, James Miller sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the morning news on his phone. A seasoned police officer, he'd seen his share of heartbreaking tales, but one headline stopped him cold. "Brave girl and dog save baby in blizzard." Reading on, he saw the name Emma, a 5-year-old homeless girl, and a German shepherd. When the photo loaded, Rex lying beside Emma in the hospital waiting room, James's heart seemed to stop. "Safia," he called, his voice breaking, his trembling hand pointing at the screen. Sophia, his wife, stepped over, covering her mouth as she recognized Rex, their dog, their companion through years of life, lost in a blizzard days earlier. James recalled that fateful night. He'd taken Rex out as an old habit, despite his retirement. A loud bang from a nearby construction site had spooked Rex, snapping his leash as he bolted into the snowy darkness. James had chased after him, shouting his name until his throat burned, but only the wind answered. Sophia had wept for hours, clutching Rex's collar, praying he'd survive. And now, Rex wasn't just alive, he'd saved 2 young lives. "We have to go," James said, his tone resolute, grabbing his coat and heading for the door, Sophia following with tears streaming down her face. At the hospital, staff led them to the waiting room. There sat Emma, small and fragile, holding her tattered cloth doll, with Rex beside her, his head resting on her legs. When Rex looked up and saw James and Sophia, his eyes lit up, his tail wagging weakly. He rose slowly, stepping toward them, nuzzling James's chest with a soft, emotional whimper. James knelt, wrapping Rex in a tight embrace, tears falling onto his damp fur. "You did it, Rex. You're incredible." Sophia knelt beside them, stroking Rex, sobbing. "We thought we'd lost you forever." But as James looked up and saw Emma sitting alone, a pang shot through his heart. That tiny girl, with her far-off eyes and trembling hands, seemed a lost figure in the vast world. He exchanged a glance with Sophia, and they both knew the story wasn't over. He approached, kneeling before Emma, his voice gentle. "Hi, Emma. You're so brave. Rex is our family, but it feels like you are too." Sophia smiled, resting a hand on Emma's shoulder. "You saved the baby, and Rex too. You've got a big heart, sweetheart." Emma looked up, her wide eyes meeting theirs, wary yet flickering with hope. James continued, "Would you like to come home with us? A real home, warm, no more cold nights. You and Rex can stay with us forever." Emma stayed silent, clutching her doll, then glanced at Rex. He nudged her gently with his nose, as if saying, "They're safe." A tear traced down her cheek, and she nodded, so slight it was almost imperceptible. The adoption process moved quickly. James and Sophia also chose to adopt the newborn, named Liam, Light, by the nurses, a tribute to the hope he embodied. Weeks later, on a warm spring afternoon, sunlight filtered through the park's trees as James and Sophia held hands with Emma and Liam, Rex bounding nearby. Emma's clear laughter rang out like a bell as she played with Liam on the grass. Rex settled down, his brown eyes softly watching his new family, content with the journey's end. From that freezing winter night, 3 lives, Emma, Rex, and Liam, that might have faded into the snow found each other, bound by love, loyalty, and silent courage. James and Sophia didn't just reclaim Rex, they gained the family they'd always dreamed of. Emma found a home, Liam a future, and Rex, with his steadfast heart, became their guardian. Their story stands as proof that, amid darkness and cold, a heart can still bloom in ways no one could predict. Months later, on a radiant spring afternoon, Sunlight pierced the park's canopy, casting shimmering patches onto the lush grass. James and Sophia held hands, smiling as Emma darted around with Liam, her pure laughter echoing like a song of joy. Liam, now a chubby toddler, took wobbly steps, his tiny hands reaching for Emma with unwavering trust. Rex lay still on the grass, his gentle brown eyes following every moment, his thick fur gleaming once more, a testament to days filled with care. Yet in Rex's gaze lingered a secret, a story only he knew. That icy winter night wasn't just a family's beginning, it was fate's whisper. From the dark alley where Liam's tiny heart nearly stopped, to Rex's desperate barks ringing through the blizzard, to Emma's trembling hands clinging to life, all wove into a symphony of hearts that refused to yield. James bent down, resting a hand on Rex's head, murmuring, "You brought them to us, didn't you?" Rex tilted his head, replying with a meaningful silence. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in brilliant orange, Emma ran to Rex, her small arms wrapping tightly around his fur. "Thank you," she said, her voice clear yet brimming with deep gratitude. Liam giggled, tumbling into Sophia's lap, while James stood quietly, feeling his heart beat stronger than ever. They hadn't just found each other that winter night, they'd uncovered a greater truth: a heart, no matter how small or wounded, can light up the world when loved. And somewhere in the sprawling city, on streets now free of snow, the tale of 3 lost hearts lived on, a flame that never died. They say that on quiet winter nights, if you listen closely, you can hear Rex's echoing barks, Liam's faint cries, and Emma's small but steady voice, sounds that awaken countless other hearts, a reminder that love and loyalty can pierce any darkness. The little family walked beneath the sunset, their shadows stretching long across the ground, a promise that from now on, none of their hearts would ever face loneliness again.